Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be checking out another one of the buffed Pokemon in Season 13 of Pokemon Go Battle League, and that is Meteor Beam AURORUS. AURORUS is an Ice and Rock-type Pokemon with the moveset of Powder Snow, Weather Ball, and now instead of Ancient Power, it gets Meteor Beam. Meteor Beam is an absurdly powerful move. It is 2 damage per energy with a guaranteed attack boost as well, and AURORUS, I honestly think, is the new best closer in the Great League. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out AURORUS in action in the Great League. Hopping into the first match as we lead into the Metacham Mirror. Since I'm double weak to counter on the back, I'm very happy to catch their counter user on the lead. I go for Psychic, but I do lose CMP, that's unfortunate. I live the first move, so I let that through. My opponent does get the defense drop as well, and that is not great. I fire off Psychic, Psychic lands, but I don't get the drop. I'm expecting them to Ice Punch, so I'm going to farm up, switch, and then catch the Ice Punch onto my Walrein, and Walrein is going to be able to absorb that no problem. The downside, however, is that these counters are absolutely shredding through me. They reach a last-second Ice Punch just before they get taken out. So down goes Walrein, but I do leave with a lot of energy. Opponent is going to send in Registeel. No baiting here. I'm going straight for the Earthquake. Earthquake does get the shield from the Registeel. Registeel is going to continue to farm up and fire off a charge move just before I reach my Icicle Spear. I will commit the shield. I want to try and get some damage off. My opponent is going to send in Noctowl into the loaded Walrein. Walrein, Icicle Spear, gets the shield, and now it's time for AURORUS to absolutely go off. They're going for a Shadow Ball. I do not care. A Shadow Ball is not going to KO. I let that through. I'm going to overfarm and then go for the Meteor Beam. Meteor Beam, as I mentioned, is an incredibly powerful charge move. Down goes the Owl, and now my attack is buffed. Registeel is a Steel type, but my attack is now buffed. I'm going for the 1-stage buffed Meteor Beam. Big damage onto the Registeel. Registeel may be a Steel type going up against an Ice Rock type, but on today's date, AURORUS fights back. Getting to Meteor Beam number 3, this will be easily taking out the Registeel, and that is a good game. Decent lead in the next match, Metacham into Shadow Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen did get nerfed with the new season, meaning that it is now 6 Poison Jabs to the first Fang instead of 5. They fire off that Poison Fang, I'm going to tank it, build up to the Psychic, and then bait with an Ice Punch. I want to grab an early shield, and then I'm going to safe switch into Walrein. In comes Walrein, they're going to farm up some energy and send in Umbreon. And here, I accidentally throw on terrible timing, giving my opponent an entire free Snarl. That is absolutely awful. My opponent will fire off a charge move. I live any one move. They are running Dark Pulse, which is slightly more expensive than Foul Play. I'm going to farm up and then go for the Earthquake on the CMP tie. Earthquake won't quite KO, but this way my opponent is not going to be able to overfarm, which is nice, because this Earthquake should put the Umbreon into farm down range for Metacham. Dark Pulse is going to take me out. I'm going to send in Metacham. Metacham looking for the farm down and gets it. We'll have to see what they have in the back. They have Skarmory, and their back line is about to get swept by AURORUS. Ice Punch lands. In comes AURORUS, farming up. In comes Nidoqueen. I'm going for this Weather Ball right away to grab that final shield. Weather Ball does get the shield. My opponent is probably going to bait here, but I will respect the potential Earth Power. They do bait with a Poison Fang. I'm going for the farm down, and I get it. Bring back in the Skarmory. This Meteor Beam may only be neutral, but it is still going to do massive damage onto the Skarmory. Opponent is going to fire off a charge move, but a Sky Attack is not going to KO. I tank it like it's nothing, farm down the Skarmory, and get the win. Dream lead in the next match, Metacham into Obstagoon. My opponent safe switches into Alolan Muck, and I make a massive mistake. Instead of switching into AURORUS, which would resist the Poison Jabs, I accidentally bring in Walrein. This is not great because they're able to land a Dark Pulse, shield my Earthquake, and take switch advantage, and that means their Obstagoon is going to get aligned onto my AURORUS. If that's the case, I'm definitely going to need to get creative to try and win this game. So I bring in AURORUS, I decide I'm going to double shield and farm all the way down. The reason being, AURORUS with energy is incredibly deadly. We've seen how much neutral Meteor Beams can do. I commit the second shield, and I am going to fully get the farm down. Opponent is going to send back in the Obstagoon. Obstagoon into my loaded Aurorus. No baiting here. I'm going straight for the Meteor Beam right off the bat. This will do a ton of damage if it lands. My opponent commits the shield, and I get boosted. Now they have to deal with a boosted Meteor Beam onto Obstagoon. Meteor Beam nearly one-shots, and I snipe with a Metacham. In the back, they're running some spice. They have Milotic, and this game should be over. Aurorus with energy is just absolutely disgusting in the end game. They go for the Surf. That is not going to be a problem whatsoever. Metacham is going to take the Surf and comfortably counter down Milotic. We've got some awesome spice in the next match. Metacham into Shadow Ampharos. My opponent is going to save switch into Politoed. I'm going to stay in, farm up a little bit of energy, and then bring in Shadow Walrein. I'm banking on the fact that they don't have Earthquake, and it appears like they're running Blizzard. That is huge. Walrein should at the very least be able to force shield advantage or switch from this matchup. I'm just going to continue to farm. They reach Weather Ball number 3. Politoed is going to be able to get me into the red here, but I'm still not in farm down range. So I'm going to farm up as much as I can and then go for the Earthquake. Earthquake onto Politoed does get shielded, so my opponent is going to be able to take switch here. Honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. I'm going to let that through and then just choose to get energy on my Metacham. Metacham continues to farm. This Politoed spamming out Weather Ball after Weather Ball. This opponent is getting a ton of value out of the Politoed. And at this point, they're low enough where I'm actually going to do something interesting. I'm going to aggressively switch Aurorus into the water type and farm all the way down because Aurorus with energy and shield advantage is just absurd. My opponent is thinking about it. They're going to send in Shadow Ampharos. Aurorus able to outpace. Are they willing to give up the final shield to the Meteor Beam? They are not. Down goes Ampharos in the back. They have Pelipper. Pelipper farming up, firing off the Weather Ball. This is not Weather Ball range, so I can let this through. Weather Ball is not going to be enough to KO, and I'm going for the boosted Meteor Beam now. Meteor Beam one-shots the Pelipper, and that is a good game. Tough lead in the next match, Metacham into Noctowl. I throw one counter, save switch into Shadow Walrein, and my opponent responds with a Spark Lantern. Not a great lead, but I am able to reach the Earthquake. I decide to go for an Icicle Spear bait, hoping to try and grab a shield, but my opponent calls the bait. What an absolutely unreal play by my opponent. They go for the Thunderbolt, I get taken out, and I am in a very tough spot here. I'm going to send in Metacham and just look to use this opportunity to get ahead on energy. They're going to fire off a Thunderbolt. That does quite a bit of damage. I'm going to farm up and go for the Psychic just before they're able to reach Surf. Psychic will, of course, KO, and I'm one shy of an Ice Punch to throw at the Noctowl. My opponent brings in their final Mon, and it's Trevenant. Oh my goodness, this is winnable. Ice Punch lands, in comes Aurorus. My opponent is ABA weak to Aurorus, and they are about to feel this dinosaur's wrath. I will shield up the Seed Bomb, farm up, fire off the Weather Ball just before they reach Seed Bomb number 2. This will, of course, KO, so my opponent is forced to burn a shield because they want to get my final shield as well. My opponent is going to be switching here and bringing in the Noctowl. I'm going straight for the Meteor Beam. The beautiful thing about Meteor Beam is that even if it's shielded, you get the attack buff. Meteor Beam gets the shield, but now my attack is raised, and this means my Weather Ball is going to do extra damage. Shadow Ball, not going to KO, but this Weather Ball is going to hurt. It is boosted from the Aurorus. Aurorus takes out the Noctowl and the Trevenant, and that is a good game. Moving into the next match, picking up a pretty nice lead, Metacham into Registeel. This is definitely where we want to see it. My opponent save switches into Azumarill, and Azumarill is a bit of a problem Pokemon for this team. It will definitely be a team effort to get rid of the Azu, so I'm going to stay in, fire off a Psychic, and then bring in Shadow Walrein. This way, they're in a range where a Shadow Earthquake is going to be enough to KO. The downside is they have a big enough energy lead where they will be able to grab shield advantage out of this matchup. So I will commit the shield and then farm up to 100 energy before Earthquaking. This will allow my Walrein to outpace the Registeel when they bring it back in, so that way I can either deal massive damage to the Registeel or get my shield back. They're going to send back in Reggie. I will overfarm somewhat and then go for the Quake. Full sending it here, hoping that my opponent is going to let it through, but they do commit the shield. They continue to farm, and they let me reach an Icicle Spear, so I will fire this off just to get a little bit of chip damage. They're close to 100, so they're forced to fire off their energy anyway, so I'm just going to let this go, and then trust in Metacham to take care of the Reggie. In the back, opponent has a Trevenant, and Trevenant will be met with AURORUS. AURORUS going straight for the Weather Ball. This will do massive damage, so my opponent is forced to burn a shield. They continue to farm, and they fire off a charge move on CMP. I should live any one charge move here. They go for the Shadow Ball. AURORUS barely able to hang on and reach the last second Weather Ball. This Weather Ball is going to take out the Trevenant. Back in comes Registeel. Registeel has energy, but unfortunately for them, my Metacham is not in a range where one Zap Cannon is going to be enough to KO. So at this point, I should be in a pretty nice spot. They do get the attack debuff, which is a little unfortunate, but either way, I should be able to reach Double Ice Punch, and Double Ice Punch plus the counters should be enough to KO. I am able to reach Ice Punch number 2. This will barely not KO. The counter after will do the trick and secure the win. Moving into the next match, as we lead into another Metacham mirror. Same game plan as before with 2 ice types in the back. I'm going to stay in and play out this matchup, so hopefully that Metacham is not going to get to face my ice types in the endgame. I fire off the Psychic right away. I do not get the defense drop. My opponent is going to massively overfarm and fire off a charge move. Since they let it through, I'm going to let it through as well. Psychic lands, no drop, and in this matchup, I do win CMP. That is quite nice. I go for the Psychic, they commit the shield, so I'm going to commit the shield back. I'm expecting they may try for an Ice Punch next, so I'm going to throw 6 counters and then catch onto my Shadow Wall Rain. I farm up, switch, and I get the catch onto my Wall Rain. Let's go. Ice Punch just does absolutely nothing here. My opponent is going to send in a Powder Snow Alolan Ninetales. Now that Charm has been nerfed, it's definitely possible that we're going to see more Powder Snow Ninetales. This one is running Psyshock. Double Psyshock will be enough to knock out, so I will fire off my Earthquake before they reach their second move. Earthquake is able to land. They reach a last second Psyshock. This should just about take me out here. Psyshock is going to KO, and now I can bring in my Metacham to get some energy. They still do have their own Metacham, and I'm going to fire off my Ice Punch. Ice Punch will KO, and I have to hope AURORUS can take whatever's in the back, but it's a Registeel, and unfortunately, this is game over. If I have a shield or energy lead and I'm already boosted, AURORUS can put in some work against Reggie, but in a true one shield scenario, unfortunately, Registeel is just able to absolutely dominate this matchup. I go for the Weather Ball first, and I'm going to fire off the Meteor Beam. Meteor Beam will do a lot of damage, but Registeel able to absorb it, reach the Focus Blast, and Focus Blast is going to KO. I still do have the Metacham left alive, but the Metacham is just too low of HP. I get Lock On down, and that is a good game. Tough lead in the final match, Metacham into Trevenant. I am going to save switch into Shadow Wall Rain, and due to the one-turn swap, they are going to outpace me by a turn and fire off the Seed Bomb. I will commit the shield, continue to farm, watching for a catch. My opponent goes for a catch as they bring in their own Shadow Wall Rain. I'm going straight for the Earthquake. Earthquake is going to grab a shield from my opponent. I'm going to continue to farm up here. My opponent will fire off the Earthquake just before I reach mine, and I decide to let this go. My game plan in this moment is to fully farm down with Metacham because I want to try and leave with as much energy as possible to threaten my opponent's Trevenant. They go for the Icicle Spear, I'm able to tank it. Metacham going for the farm down, and I get it, and I leave just shy of back-to-back Ice Punches, and that is incredible. The Trevenant took a lot of Powder Snow damage from Wall Rain, so they are very close to Ice Punch range. I'm going to fire off this Ice Punch. If it doesn't KO, I'm going to stay in because they do have a Seed Bomb loaded, and I would rather take that energy on Metacham. So I am putting my full faith into AURORUS. In comes AURORUS, and they have Galarian Stunfisk in the back. This is a bit scary, but if I call a Rock Slide, I should be okay. So my plan here is I'm going to no-shield the first move. Even if they build up to the Earthquake, I'm going to let it go. An Earthquake would, of course, hit for super effective damage as well, but a Rock Slide, I can actually survive. So now, I should be able to reach the 3 Weather Balls needed to take care of this Stunfisk. They'll fire off Rock Slide number 2. That is perfectly fine by me, as I do have the shield remaining. And now, I can just fire off the Weather Ball as soon as I get it. Outpacing the Stunfisk, this Weather Ball will take care of the Stunfisk. I'm able to farm down the Trevenant, and that is a good game. All in all, I was extremely impressed with Meteor Beam Aurorus. Meteor Beam has always been a terrific charge move, but previously only Gigalith could learn it, and Gigalith, with the slow energy generation of Smackdown, couldn't really put it to use. Whereas something like Aurorus that has Powder Snow that can generate energy at a pretty nice rate, this thing is an absolutely terrifying closer, and Shadow Walrein is incredibly good at baiting out Pokemon that Aurorus doesn't want to see, maybe grabbing a shield advantage, and then with shield advantage and or energy advantage, Aurorus can absolutely sweep. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.